Steve Waugh for me is the epitome of Australian great.
Steve Waugh was a tough competitor.
Well, that's an excellent shot. That breaks the shackles. Hans Klusener getting a bit of his own medicine there.
When you got through a tough top order, you'd have to deal with Steve Waugh.
On the field, he was a figure of absolute grit and determination.
Steve Waugh was actually the captain I copied.
One of the best captains the world's seen. He had a great team around him as well. He knew exactly what you bring out of those guys.
Mental toughness was the main part because they had great team in batsmen, great team in bowlers. They had a lovely wicketkeeper in Gilchrist. But to keep that herd together, to keep that herd motivated was the greatest task. And Steve Waugh was no-nonsense captain.
He molded that team into a ruthless winning combination.
He was the person who helped Australian cricket to achieve some greater heights. 16 consecutive test wins, unimaginable. He made it possible.
I just watched the way Steve Waugh captained Australia, the way that he got his team playing, the little tricks that he brought to the tactical side of the game, always making the batsman's life as difficult as he possibly could. His captaincy style was one that he would get into the batsman's mind.
Beautifully through the gap. It was in the air, but always into the gap. Beautiful shot from Steve Waugh.
Plays on the onside so well, does Steve Waugh. It's in the air, but he's found the gap, so it's no problem.
I had the pleasure of spending some time with Steve around captaincy, and he was always very generous with his knowledge and his time.
He produced one of the epic innings. How can we forget Jamaican double-hundred? How can we forget Old Trafford's a century in each innings?
When the chips were down and the Australians needed to win, and Steve Waugh, came out and scored that 100.
If you remember the 100 he scored at the Oval, it was an amazing 100 considering that he had torn his calf, but he just continued on. He'd never give up.
Probably wasn't as gifted as some of that era, but he made himself into as good a player because of his mental strength, his capacity to just stick to his strength, stick to his game plans, front up to the opposition. That confrontation with Curtly Ambrose in the Caribbean was one I will always remember.
Well, that's it. That's a magnificent century. A century played when the pressure was really on. He is a fantastic cricketer. His second one-day international century, and probably one that he will never forget if Australia win this match.
He was a magnificent fielder. He was also a very useful medium pace bowler.
If you want to be a true Australian side, you've got to have a bit of Ricky Ponting and a bit of Steve Waugh in you.